We're talking prediction markets. So come August 1st, Minnesota will become the first state to ban prediction markets. Covers.com senior news analyst Ryan Butler joins us now to talk about what this means. Ryan, thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, actually, I was hoping to talk more about the Ryan meetup, but this is good too.
We can talk about the Ryan meetup as well. I mean, your name is Ryan, so we're in TV news. We love a good segue.
Right.
Let's talk about prediction markets, though. First of all, can you just explain for our viewers who maybe are just catching on to this, what is a prediction market?
Yeah, a prediction market is what we're looking at right now, the overall thing that might be Kalshi or Polymarket, two of the biggest brands you've heard of. Prediction market is a digital platform where you can trade anything as they promote. And this includes what they call event contracts. It could be on the weather, it can be on political elections, it can be on album sales, Spotify streams, it can be on almost anything. And a lot of this comes in from sports, though, as well. You can trade contracts on, will the Twins win? Will the Vikings win the Super Bowl? Which you might not want to trade that one. But you can trade on basically anything going on with it. And it's caused a lot of controversy where these prediction markets phrase themselves similarly the way you would look at a Robinhood or a Coinbase or something else, where they look at it almost like buying and selling stocks. And when there's a lot of entities, including Minnesota's tribal casinos, including much of the regulated gambling industry that is seeing these as more like a form of gambling that isn't licensed, and typically it's licensed by the states. Here in Minnesota, where there is no sports betting, there's a lot of concern specifically around these sports event contracts on these prediction markets.
All right, come August 1st, Minnesota is poised to become the first state to ban these prediction markets. The law is supposed to go into effect August 1st. What will happen August 1st, pending any, litigation?
Well, that's actually the bigger question, is the litigation that's pending. So this bill was signed into law in May, and immediately, almost 24 hours later, the CFTC, which is the federal government body that regulates these prediction markets, filed a lawsuit in Minnesota to stop that from taking effect on August 1st. So we've already had a preliminary court hearing. The judge said they are going, she plans to rule shortly. We're not exactly sure if that means that ruling will come in time for the August 1st deadline. Ideally, both parties would like to see this, but that's the big question. If the ruling goes in the prediction market's favor, then this bill will not be able to take effect. Prediction markets, which are still trading and still available in Minnesota, will continue. Users are still able to use this Kalshi Polymarket, as well as DraftKings and FanDuel in Minnesota have specific types of prediction markets, which are separate than their sportsbook apps. All of those will continue to operate. If the ruling goes against these prediction markets, then those will have to cease operations immediately. We've seen this in Nevada. We've seen this also in a couple other states where judges have ruled to implement these preliminary injunctions as further court rulings go, and they'll have to stop operations in the state.
Okay, but we're a week away. If a judge doesn't make a decision before August 1st, what happens? Does the law go into effect?
So that is the million-dollar question, right? The law would technically go into effect from everything we have with it, and then could retroactively be denied, and then you could be stopped, and then the prediction markets would have to leave. Now, if they stay, then they could face greater consequences. They could face future punishments. There is a lot of kind of some teeth to this law in Minnesota, and it's a big question. Though we're going to be watching eagerly to see. Do they blink? Do they continue operating? Do they continue arguing, as they have in court and across the nation, that this is actually just a federal issue? The states have no authority. It's going to be a big question. And we actually just at this moment don't know what the plan will be.
I have to imagine a lot of people are watching what happens with this court case, with this challenge to this new law. Will it set a precedent? Whatever the decision is, will it set a precedent for other states?
Possibly, it can add on to others. What we've seen is splits all over the place. We've seen some states that have ruled in favor of the prediction markets. We've seen some states that have ruled against them. We've seen some federal appeals courts that have ruled for and against these prediction markets, depending on where you are. So what we're looking at is a very divided state-by-state approach to this, causing a lot of concern and chaos as we go forward. And everyone on both sides of this issue believe that we're heading to the Supreme Court. We could see a decision as early as a year from now. It could be 2 years from now. But because of all the different conflicting views, the different court rulings in different states, and different appeals courts, this is causing chaos. And ultimately, looks like we're going to need one final court, the Supreme Court, to decide this. In the meantime, in Minnesota, yeah, it's an important step. It's another field on the battlefront, proverbially, as we go forward with it. But again, it's just one more piece on a very complex moving board that's really impacting all 50 states.
All right, for a little while here, for my next couple of questions, let's just pretend like the law does go into effect August 1st, that we don't have a decision by the court, the law goes into effect. Could this push users to unregulated or offshore platforms, this ban? I mean, is that even possible? If you're in Minnesota, you're a Minnesotan, would you still be able to do this? I don't know, you use a VPN, something like that?
Yeah, and to clarify too, it is your state of physical location, not your state of residency. But yeah, so if you are in Minnesota, you would, let's say these go into effect, Kalshi, Polymarket, all of them leave. They follow that. Those aren't available anymore. One option is you could cross state lines. You could try to do it there. You could use these twice, or there is literally hundreds of illegal offshore sites, many which are seemingly indistinguishable from the legal regulated sites. And a lot of people are confused, and I look at a lot of these sites even advertise on radio shows, podcasts, even sometimes online mainstream media. So it's very confusing. So there are options. That is one of the biggest concerns here there, is that people are going to find alternatives. Like you said, there are VPNs, which can be, varying degrees of effective, but there's always going to be interest there. We've seen this too, where Minnesota is one of the last states that has no forms of legal sports betting. We see this all the time where people are looking for workarounds. They're looking for these unlicensed sites. So that is absolutely a concern, though. So you might not be able to use those major brands that people are familiar with. There are options, though those are technically illegal and they don't offer consumer and player protections that we see from the regulated market in both the sports books, more especially. Then there is as well the Kalshis and Polymarkets are regulated by the federal government, and there are certain standards they have to meet. These other sites, these different companies that are based offshore, based in different countries, you have that, and you might not get paid if you play with them. There's a lot of concerns there too, and that's one of the issues we're facing.
After August 1st, if a Minnesotan goes and makes a prediction market trade, could they be penalized? Do you see that happening?
So this won't go after the individual. This is entirely after the corporate perspective of it. So there's no fear there with it. There's not concern about it. I would, avoid it personally. I highly recommend against using any site that's illegal, even in the state, if the law is passed with it. Try to avoid those again, because there's not consent. If there is an issue, if there's a concern, if your money isn't coming back, there's no repercussions. Whereas in a state with legal gaming, or even the prediction markets themselves, like Kalshi, there are restitutions, there are resources. So yeah, unfortunately, if you're in Minnesota, these paths do not use. I would highly recommend against using a prediction market, against using an online sports book. You have to go down to Iowa where these are legal, or somewhere else. And in the meantime, it's just a kind of a frustrating thing where Minnesotans don't have a legal avenue to bet beyond maybe in person at a casino.
Is there any benefit to our states on the border? I think about, because sports betting, you brought up sports betting. Sports betting is not legal in Minnesota. A lot of people cross, state lines to do that. Is there then a benefit to the states around us where it is still legal? Do the states get a cut?
Yes, exactly. It's based entirely off of the state you're in, not the state you live in. So if you did travel to Iowa, for example, that's Iowa tax dollars that are going there. For every bet the sportsbook wins, every sportsbook bet that you lose, that's tax money that goes to Iowa. And if you were in Wisconsin, which doesn't have online, but you can bet in person at the sportsbooks at their tribal casinos, that's money that's going there. So that is absolutely one of them. The Twin Cities aren't a border town necessarily, like we saw originally when New Jersey was one of the first states to legalize sports betting. New York did not. We saw that all the time. There was anecdotal evidence of people telling their interns to go to New Jersey and place bets for them. We saw that. So while it's not a terrible drive, it's not as big. We saw a bigger thing down in Missouri, where St. Louis and Kansas City, those borders towns that completely intertwine with it. So it's not as big a deal in the greater Twin Cities area, but there are people who are willing to make that drive over, and it is not a huge boon, but it is a boon to the neighboring states.
So for those who use these prediction markets right now, what do you think the biggest thing they should know is as we approach August 1st?
Yeah, just be aware that August 1st, this could take effect and that you might not be able to access it. I would not, they are going to be able to have your funds available, even if they are banned from operating in the state. So I wouldn't have to freak out about that. You might want to withdraw ahead of time, just to extra precaution that you're not, they're not going away. It would be a temporary thing and your money is safe with it. But just be aware that you don't, August 1st, be prepared that might not work. You will now, though, again, if you need to, you can go to one of those other states. It's not your state of residence. Can't stress that enough, but it's the state where you're physically located. So you could make that drive over if you wanted to trade with it. But it is, I understand, it's a difficult legal question about the nature of gambling, and this is why this is likely going to the Supreme Court. There's a really strong question. What constitutes gambling? Is stock trading gambling? Is these day trades gambling? All this is a big question. But in the meantime, there are a lot of Minnesotans who are enjoying this product. It is legal now, and it is, I can understand the frustration that if this does take effect and they're not going to be able to use these platforms anymore, even if it might be the right thing to do by the letter of the law.
But it does sound like you think that if a decision isn't made by the courts before August 1st, the ban will go into effect.
Yes, it would legally go into effect. Again, now the platforms would have the ability to not adhere to it. It is possible. They could just say, well, this law, we don't have to listen to it because we're only by the federal. They have adhered, though, to other bans and other court injunctions. They did this in Nevada. There's some other states that are pursuing it or done it as well. So I would expect them to adhere to it. They do want to be regulated. They everything with it, but it's just a possibility. It's one more, again, a very complex, esoteric legal battle about the nature of gambling, and it's going to be a very long, ongoing one, and here in Minnesota and again across the country.
So interesting. Really appreciate you joining us again. Ryan Butler, he's a senior news analyst with covers.com. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. As Ryan summarized there, come August 1st, Minnesota will become the first state to ban prediction markets. But of course, there has been a lawsuit filed to try and fight that. So we'll see what happens.